stop. This is not random. If you feel restless, if your current environment feels too small, if your spirit knows you are not designed to rent your future, then listen carefully. Heaven's final call is not about panic. It is about positioning. 3 forces are standing at the edge of your decision: protection, wisdom, authority, not to hand you property, but to prepare you to own territory. Do not scroll. Stay here, because relocation begins in your thinking before it appears in your life. If you are ready to shift from survival to ownership, press like now. Subscribe only if you are serious about building land, assets, and legacy. Now listen. In Scripture, angels often represent assignment and transition. So what are these 3 forces? Protection, guarding what you build. Wisdom, guiding what you buy. Authority, governing what you own. Without protection, assets disappear. Without wisdom, investments collapse. Without authority, territory is lost. You are not being called to random wealth. You are being called to structured ownership. Abraham invested in land. Joseph managed territory. Nehemiah rebuilt walls. Land represents permanence. Permanence represents legacy. Legacy represents influence beyond your lifetime. If you are called to a real estate blessing, it begins with this. Think long-term. Study value. Understand appreciation. Calculate risk. Eliminate emotional purchases. Ownership requires discipline. Breakthrough is not sudden money. Breakthrough is credit improved, debt reduced, savings strengthened, income diversified, investments initiated. Breakthrough is when panic disappears and planning replaces it. Psalm says the righteous flourish like a tree planted by streams. Planted, not drifting. Real estate is about planting roots, planting capital, planting strategy. Luxury is not decoration. Luxury is stability. Luxury is walking into a space knowing the structure is solid. A blessed house is one where bills are predictable, equity is increasing, assets are appreciating, peace is constant. That is blessing. Stay with this, because this is your separation point. You can chase appearances, or build ownership, chase quick upgrades, or build permanent value. Press like if you choose ownership. Subscribe if you choose legacy over lifestyle. This is not heaven rushing you. This is heaven reminding you. Opportunity has timing. If you delay discipline, cycles repeat. If you act now, trajectory changes. Trajectory change is the real breakthrough. Say this: I move from renting to owning. I move from chaos to structure. I move from impulse to strategy. I build land. I build equity. I build legacy. The final call is not mystical. It is strategic. You are not waiting for archangels. You are becoming the architect. And architects design territory intentionally. Now build accordingly. Your breakthrough is now. 3 archangels are released, carrying your wealth, land, and blessing. To confirm your divine call, tap the secure scan or PayPal link in the description. Declare with faith, "Yes, God, I receive my financial and real estate breakthrough." If you are reading this, you are the chosen one. This is secure and covered under divine protection. Now is your moment. Step into the promise. The heavens have moved. Your final divine call has been activated. 3. Archangels have been dispatched with wealth, property, and favor in their hands. If your spirit feels this, you are the chosen one. Say it now. Yes, God, I receive. Timing is now. Faith unlocks all. If heaven's call is about territory, then you must understand that territory is never granted casually. It is governed intentionally. You cannot inherit land with a renter's mentality. You cannot step into ownership with scattered discipline. Ownership demands awareness of value, awareness of timing, awareness of risk, awareness of leverage. When you look at property, Do not just see walls and design, see equity potential, see cash flow capacity, see appreciation over decades. The wealthy never buy space, they buy position. Position determines influence. Influence determines leverage. Leverage determines expansion. Expansion sustained becomes legacy. If you are being called into real estate blessing, it begins with thinking like a land steward. Study markets, observe trends, understand cycles. Real estate moves in seasons. Seasons reward patience. The impatient overpay at peaks. The disciplined acquire during hesitation. Hesitation is where opportunity hides. Most fear downturns. Builders prepare for them. Preparation is liquidity. Liquidity is strength. Strength allows decisive action when opportunity appears. Decisive action under preparation multiplies advantage. This is how territory expands, not emotionally, but strategically. You must detach from aesthetic attraction and attach to structural value. Does the land appreciate? Does the location grow? Does the property generate income? Does the risk align with your margin? Margin protects you from desperation. Desperation makes poor decisions. Remove desperation and clarity returns. Clarity is the silent guardian of wealth. Wealth guarded compounds. Compounding equity transforms ordinary purchases into extraordinary assets over time. Time is the hidden multiplier. The longer you hold appreciating property, the stronger your foundation becomes. Foundation strength determines how high you can build. You cannot construct a multi-level estate on a shallow base. Reinforce savings. Eliminate unnecessary liabilities. Strengthen credit. Increase income streams. These are foundational beams. Once beams are reinforced, scaling becomes safe. Safety in scaling is the difference between builders and speculators. Speculators chase spikes. Builders construct systems. Systems produce predictable growth. Predictable growth builds confidence. Confidence under discipline allows bold but calculated moves. Calculated moves multiply portfolio strength. Portfolio strength creates resilience. Resilience ensures that one economic shift does not collapse your progress. This is territory thinking. You do not depend on one stream. You diversify. Residential, commercial, land, development, partnerships. Diversification spreads risk and increases stability. Stability increases staying power. Staying power allows compounding to do its silent work. Silent work is powerful. It does not require applause. It requires consistency. Consistency over years transforms small beginnings into commanding presence. That is the blessing. Not sudden luxury, but sustained equity growth that supports generations. When your children inherit land secured with wisdom, they inherit options. Options create mobility. Mobility creates influence. Influence creates freedom. Freedom is the ultimate real estate blessing, not just owning property, but owning time. Time freed from debt. Time freed from panic. Time freed from instability. To reach that level, you must operate with long-term vision daily. Reject impulsive upgrades. Reject lifestyle inflation that steals investment capital. Redirect surplus into assets. Reinvest returns. Protect gains. Expand intelligently. Repeat relentlessly. This is how heaven's call becomes reality, not through spectacle, but through structure. Structure produces authority. Authority over territory produces confidence. Confidence backed by preparation produces sustainable expansion. And sustainable expansion builds estates that stand when trends fade and markets shift. Think in decades. Act in discipline. Move in strategy. Guard your focus. Acquire with intelligence. Hold with patience. Multiply with wisdom. That is how relocation becomes ownership and ownership becomes legacy. At some point, you must understand that real estate is not just property, it is power secured in physical form. Land does not panic, land does not scroll, land does not react emotionally, land appreciates quietly when positioned correctly. That is the mindset you must embody. Quiet strength, calculated patience, strategic expansion. If you are stepping into a territory shift, then you are stepping into governance. Governance means oversight. Oversight means numbers are reviewed, contracts are understood, clauses are examined, risks are evaluated before signatures are written. The careless inherit stress. The disciplined inherit stability. Stability compounds into dominance. Dominance in this context is not loud, it is structural. Structural dominance means your housing cost becomes income producing. Your residence becomes equity building. Your land becomes appreciating. Your decisions become compounding. That is when the shift is complete. You are no longer consuming shelter. You are commanding assets. Commanding assets changes psychology. When you know your property is increasing in value over time, your confidence changes. When rental payments stop draining and equity begins growing, your posture changes. Posture affects decisions. Decisions determine trajectory. Trajectory sustained becomes destiny. Destiny is not mystical. It is mathematical repetition aligned with long-term strategy. If heaven's call is final, then distraction must be finished. You cannot build estates while operating in chaos. Remove chaos from your finances. Remove chaos from your schedule. Remove chaos from your spending. Order attracts increase. Increase flows where discipline exists. Discipline is rare. Rarity creates advantage. Advantage held long enough becomes separation. Separation over decades becomes generational leverage. Leverage means your children start ahead. They do not scramble for security. They expand from stability. That is bloodline shift. That is territory secured. But territory requires maintenance. Maintenance requires awareness. Markets change. Regulations shift. Interest rates move. The wise monitor environment continuously. Monitoring allows adjustment. Adjustment preserves growth. Preservation ensures endurance. Endurance protects legacy. Legacy is not a one-time breakthrough. It is a sustained structure. A house blessed is not one decorated expensively. It is one financed wisely, positioned strategically, insured properly, maintained consistently. A luxury house is not marble and glass. It is margin and equity. Margin provides breathing room. Equity provides strength. Strength allows expansion. Expansion controlled prevents collapse. Collapse happens when ego exceeds structure. Keep ego small. Keep systems strong. Keep liquidity healthy. Keep risk calculated. When those pillars stand firm, territory multiplies. Multiply carefully. Acquire when numbers make sense. Exit when strategy demands it. Reinvest intelligently. Let compounding operate quietly while others chase appearances. Over time, the gap widens. You are not trying to look wealthy. You are becoming structurally wealthy. Structural wealth is not shaken by temporary storms. Structural wealth does not disappear with trends. Structural wealth is anchored in assets that endure. And when you operate at this level, relocation is no longer symbolic. It becomes literal. New addresses appear because old capacity has been outgrown. Outgrowing capacity is the sign of expansion done correctly. Expansion done correctly becomes irreversible momentum. Momentum sustained across years transforms ordinary beginnings into commanding presence. That is the real estate blessing, not fantasy, not spectacle, structure, strategy, stewardship. And once you embrace that fully, territory does not intimidate you. You govern it. There comes a point where you stop asking whether you are ready and you start behaving like you are responsible. Responsibility is the final gate. Responsibility is heavier than excitement. It requires daily awareness. It requires disciplined execution when no one is watching. If this is truly heaven's final call, then the delay must end inside you, not outside, inside. You are no longer reacting to opportunity. You are preparing for it before it arrives. Preparation separates the chosen from the distracted. The distracted wait for perfect timing. The prepared create leverage in imperfect timing. That is the shift. You do not chase headlines. You study fundamentals. You do not follow noise. You analyze numbers. You do not jump emotionally. You calculate strategically. Every contract reviewed, every percentage understood, every risk measured. Because territory requires oversight. Oversight builds confidence. Confidence backed by preparation creates decisive action. Decisive action, when aligned with long-term structure, produces compounding authority. Authority over assets produces stability. Stability produces peace. Peace produces clarity. Clarity allows intelligent scaling. Scaling done wisely transforms single property into portfolio. Portfolio becomes power. Power sustained becomes generational transfer. Generational transfer is the real breakthrough, not a single house, not a single upgrade, a system that feeds itself long after you initiated it. That is the blessing. When your address changes because your capacity expanded, not because your impulse reacted. When your house is blessed because your structure is disciplined. When your finances are strong because your decisions are calculated. That is governance. Governance over self precedes governance over territory. If you master your habits, you master your outcomes. If you master your outcomes, you command your environment. Commanding your environment does not mean control over everything. It means preparedness for anything. And preparedness eliminates fear. Fearless builders expand intelligently. Intelligent expansion compounds quietly. Quiet compounding becomes unstoppable over time. That is how legacy is secured, not through sudden spectacle, but through sustained stewardship. From this moment forward, operate with territory awareness. Evaluate long-term impact before short-term satisfaction. Preserve liquidity. Strengthen credit. Expand skill. Acquire wisely. Hold patiently. Multiply intentionally. Repeat without emotional distraction. Let discipline speak. Let equity grow. Let compounding widen the gap between you and instability. This is the final tone. You are not hoping for a blessing. You are structuring one. You are not waiting for relocation. You are building capacity for it. You are not chasing breakthrough. You are engineering inevitability. And when inevitability takes hold, relocation is not a surprise. It is a result. Stay structured, stay strategic, stay disciplined, and let the territory expand accordingly. At this level, you do not need dramatic announcements. You need execution. The call has been heard. The blueprint has been revealed. The only remaining question is whether you will move with discipline or return to distraction. Because territory does not respond to excitement, it responds to stewardship. Stewardship is daily. It is reviewing accounts. It is tracking equity. It is protecting liquidity. It is strengthening skills. It is preparing before expanding. That is maturity. And maturity is what qualifies you for scale. If you truly want relocation, then increase your capacity first. Capacity attracts opportunity. Opportunity under structure becomes permanent expansion. Permanent expansion becomes security. Security becomes freedom. Freedom becomes legacy. That is the chain. Break any link and the system weakens. Strengthen every link and the system becomes unstoppable. From this point forward, you do not rush into contracts. You study them. You do not inflate lifestyle. You inflate assets. You do not chase quick wins. You build long-term dominance. You do not depend on luck. You rely on structure. When you live this way consistently, something shifts quietly. Fear disappears. Impulse weakens. Confidence stabilizes. You begin to move like someone who owns the future instead of renting it. That is the final transformation. Ownership mentality, long-term vision, measured aggression, controlled expansion. A blessed house is not built in one moment. It is secured decision by decision. A new address is not granted randomly. It is earned through preparation. Real estate blessing is not mystical. It is strategic obedience to structure. And when structure becomes your lifestyle, increase becomes predictable. So here is the end of the matter. Stop waiting for signs. Start reinforcing foundations. Stop seeking spectacle. Start building systems. Stop hoping for relocation. Start increasing capacity. Because when capacity meets opportunity, relocation is inevitable. This is the final call, not emotional, but structural, not dramatic, but decisive. Build wisely, hold firmly, expand strategically, and let your legacy speak long after the noise fades.